Hello and welcome back to Fred in the Shed 1, and in today we have another one of these extremely cheap little stealth spy cameras. This one came from eBay, cost the amazing sum of £3.52 delivered. Less than £4 to the UK delivered. Well, it's not the box, is it? But in the little packet we get the camera itself. This is a sort of stealth camera there. It's kind of a button camera. The idea is that you will hide this in a shirt and it would be hidden, and you can take sort of stealth footage. Be a bit careful where you take stealth footage because it is illegal in certain places. In the little packet we get just a very basic sort of USB to mini charging lead. We get some instructions that I'm not even going to go into them. They are absolutely awful. These are probably one of the worst instructions I've ever come across. They're in very much pidgin English, and yeah, I didn't bother with those, just had to sort of play around with it myself. The camera itself claims to be high def in the advert, but not overly so. It hasn't got the high def logo or anything like that. Claims the maximum resolution of the video is 720 by 480. Well, that's not really an industry standard. I suspect it's probably going to be the normal 640 by 480, and but as they've not gone over the top claiming this is a high def camera, I'm not going to get sort of too hung up about that. The camera itself, this uses a TF card. It has a little TF card slot there in the side, so you need to supply your own TF card. I would recommend at least a class 10 card. It doesn't come with one. And this camera will not Wi-Fi, it hasn't got built-in Wi-Fi, it will not connect to your mobile phone, so you can't sort of use it as a remote camera to get the pictures and the video and also sound recording, because it does have a built-in sound recorder for some reason. But to get all that you do have to remove the card. One thing that I immediately like about this camera is it appears to be sort of quite honest. It doesn't claim to be anything that it's not. The camera itself, it doesn't have any motion detection, so it means you have to switch it on and off sort of manually. There's also no night vision. It won't work at night. There's no kind of fake infrared LED arrays around the sort of lens itself. Also, it will not record and charge at the same time, so you can't sort of just plug in a 5-volt supply and leave this somewhere remotely and sort of hope that it carries on recording. So you are reliant on the battery. When the battery runs out, the camera will stop. And I will be testing the full length of the battery in a little while. But it does sort of loop on a memory card. It takes us a TF card. You can put up to a 32 gigabyte sort of card. It records in little 10-minute sections and then records, and then when it gets to the end of the memory on the card, although the battery will go first, but if it got to the end of the memory capacity, it will start at the beginning and it will record over your earliest sort of clip. So that's pretty good, and each 10-minute sort of recording is only 500 megabytes in time, so that's not sort of too bad as well. The only thing, you can't use it as a webcam. Again, if you connect to your computer, you can't sort of use it as a webcam, but it's just a little surveillance stealth sort of camera. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's being quite honest. So that's about it. Not really much I can tell you. It's very cheap. It looks a little bit like a button. We'll see how that looks in a shirt in a short while. But anyway, let's get on with some of the footage that I took a little earlier, and we'll see how the camera got on. Here's some footage shot on the camera, and straight away, yeah, this is not 720p, this is 640 by 480, but I think that's fair enough because I think it's done a fairly good job. This was a particularly dull day, it was raining, but I think this video is very acceptable for what this sort of camera cost. The audio, on the other hand, you're going to hear that in a moment. Yeah, not too impressed with the audio. It overloads easy, it sounds quite sort of scratchy, and you'll sort of hear that when I cross over the road in just a moment. Even walking along, when you're consciously holding the camera very steady, it's not too bad. Of course, the only problem is you don't really know where the camera's pointing, and because it has quite a narrow field of view, it's difficult to get everything in the actual frame. But when you're consciously thinking about it, it's quite a usable camera, really, for what it costs. There is some control in the aperture on the sort of lens electronically. It does sort of manage to handle the transition between dark and light fairly reasonably. Not too bad at all, really. So it's quite a dull day today, so that does sort of help things. But I'll be testing this. I'll try and get a sunny day and see how it handles a very sharp
kind of change in light to dark. Normally these little cameras don't do quite so well.
But how's this camera going to work in stealth mode? Well, I tried a couple of shirts here. I settled on the black one in the end. It does kind of gather up the material because it's much thicker. The lens is much thicker than the thread you would get on a normal button, and it doesn't look exactly like the buttons you're going to get on your shirt. But I figured that I'd put this on and go for walks with the dogs, and if the missus didn't notice this, and she notices a lot of things, it would pass the test, and I'm pleased to say that she didn't notice. So yeah, it does pass the stealth test. Once the camera is hidden, it does become quite difficult to operate. You have to remember what sequence of buttons to press and how to hold which button down for so many seconds and sort of things like that. And it's not something you're going to be able to sort of fiddle with, so you're just going to have to start this camera, let it go and hope for the best. And the buzz is quite useful, but it is rather noisy. Just have a listen. Here is some real stealth image with the camera hidden on my shirt. I'm just going to be quiet for a minute so we can sort of hear how it performs.
That's a child benefit. That'll take up to £200 a month. She must get...
Okay.
Now the sound did actually better on this clip when it was hidden sort of in my shirt. But one thing that is quite bad is that if you aim the camera towards the sunshine, it just completely overloads the exposure and everything gets wiped out. Also, you'll notice that the image is all over the place, and this is because the camera is quite zoomed in. This is down to the fact that it's got a very small CMOS sort of sensor, so it's like having a zoom on your phone all the time. So everything's a bit sort of jittery, and because you can't aim it, you tend to capture a lot of the sky and not really where you want the camera to point. Now, because those buttons are quite fiddly to use, the battery life is going to be quite important because you're just going to have to set this video running and hope for the best. So I did a very, very crude test here, as you can sort of see, and I found that the battery lasted 58 minutes of continuous video. The video itself records in little 10-minute sort of clips and puts those onto the memory card. They're about 500 megabytes a clip, and it's quite sort of seamless. Now, that's 58 minutes of continuous video, but if you're playing about with those buttons and you're using that vibration device every time in the camera, that might reduce the sort of battery down a little less. But I think 58 minutes of continuous video is pretty good. Final thing to test is the camera option. That does claim to shoot 12 million pixel images, and somehow it manages to do that on the count when you actually explore the images, but in truth they're pretty bloody awful, to be honest. Everything is a little bit out of focus. It's very difficult to try and frame the image because you don't know which way the camera's sort of pointed, and yeah, it's pretty poor, it's pretty useless, and it's not something you're going to use. In conclusion, well, I think the video quality isn't too bad. It is 640 by 480, but you know, I think it's acceptable for something that costs £3.50, and that's the price of a decent coffee here in the UK. So yeah, I don't think it's too bad. I mean, it's let down again, which is I'm finding with all of these sort of very, very cheap little sort of spy cameras, is the fact that there's very little depth of field in the sort of video there. It's very, very zoomed in. It's probably about 45 degrees. If it was wide angle, it would get on better and it wouldn't be sort of bouncing around, and you would be able to sort of see more of what you're trying to video. So it is very, using it in the field like I tried it, I don't know, I think probably it's a little bit too much for the camera. But then again, I think if you was to put this in a jacket or something, or a shirt, and you sort of hung it on a door and just sort of left it there, and since the battery lasts almost an hour, you probably could get some usable sort of stealth surveillance out of it. So as long as you sort of set it up and you practiced where you were going to sort of aim the lens in the first place. But yeah, in a controlled environment, if you're not speaking too close to the microphone, it does a pretty good job. And yeah, I was quite happy really with the sort of video in those circumstances. Right, so I'm going to bring this one to a close. So I'll just give a little preview. We've got this. which is a coat hook. Yeah, I know it's a coat hook, but it has a built-in little spy camera. Again, this will, I think, coming in at under the £5 UK. So my next video, I will be giving this a thorough test, and this one does have motion sensing as well. So yeah, we'll be seeing how this one gets on and what sort of video we get out of that. And my previous video, if you missed it, we tested one of these very cheap little imitation sort of spy cubes, a bit like a Polaroid cube, but yeah, bit how you're doing. This one didn't do so well, claimed to be high def, and yeah, well, that didn't sort of work out. But if you're interested in that in this video, I will leave a little pop-up at the end, so just stay to the end of the video, click on that, and yeah, go away and have a look at that. So that's about it. I'd like to say cheers, thank you for your view time, it's always welcome. If you enjoyed the video, give me the old thumbs up, that helps, and maybe consider giving me a sub. That would be appreciated as well. But as for now, as always, look after yourself out there, stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Cheers now.